Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Here are 3 scary stories about working in the late hours of the night. If you enjoy the video, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. The house on Sycamore Lane. Back in college, I worked as a pizza delivery driver. It was decent money, especially with tips, and I didn't mind the night shifts. Most people were polite, and I liked listening to music while driving through quiet neighborhoods. It was easy. Until that night on Sycamore Lane. It was around 11:15 p.m. on a Thursday, late enough that I was hoping it'd be my last delivery before heading home. The order came in from a number I didn't recognize. Cash payment, 1 large pepperoni. Nothing weird about it, except the address, Sycamore Lane. I'd lived in that town my whole life. There wasn't a Sycamore Lane. I double-checked the GPS. I pulled up a location just off County Road 12, tucked back behind some old farmland. Maybe it was a new development, I figured. The pizza was already boxed and in the warmer, so I jumped in the car and headed out. As I turned off the main road, the pavement gave way to gravel. There were no streetlights, just the dim, yellow glow of my headlights stretching out in front of me. The road narrowed as trees closed in on both sides, thick and bare from the winter. Eventually, I saw a mailbox with a hand-painted number that matched the order. The house itself was set far back off the road, barely visible except for a faint porch light. I pulled up the long driveway, tires crunching on gravel, and parked near the front steps. That's when I got the first weird feeling. It was too quiet, like unnaturally quiet. No wind, no crickets, just silence. I got out of the car and grabbed the pizza, walked up to the door, and rang the bell. Nothing. I knocked. Still nothing. I waited, shuffling awkward on the porch, thinking maybe I should just leave the pizza and bail. Then I heard it, slow, creaking footsteps inside. Not coming to the door, just pacing. Then, finally, the door opened. Barely. Maybe 6 inches. Just enough for me to see a pale face peeking out. It was a man, probably in his 50s. He didn't say anything, just looked at me with wide, watery eyes. Large pepperoni? I said, holding out a box. He didn't take it. You came fast, he said quietly, almost like he was surprised. I smiled awkwardly. Yeah, slow night. Still, he didn't move to take the pizza, just stared at me. Then he whispered, "She's in the back. She's hungry." At this point, I assumed maybe he had a sick wife or something. I offered again, trying to stay polite. Want me to just leave it here? He looked down the hallway behind him, then back at me. Could you bring it in? Just to the kitchen? Now, I know what you're thinking. Don't go inside. Believe me, I had the same thought. Every red flag in my brain was waving like crazy. But he looked harmless, thin, shaky, sick even. And it was cold as hell. I figured maybe if I helped out, he'd tip big and I could finally call it a night. So I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. It was awful, like rotten meat and mildew. The hallway was dark, lit only by a single bulb over the stairs. The wallpaper was peeling, and the air felt thick, humid somehow. He gestured down the hall. Kitchen's back there. I walked slowly, trying not to breathe through my nose. The floor creaked under my feet. As I reached the kitchen doorway, I paused. There was a woman sitting at the table. Her back was to me, long black hair hanging down over her shoulders. She didn't move, didn't turn, just sat there, facing the wall. Pizza delivery? I said, my voice cracking slightly. She didn't respond. I set the box on the counter and turned to leave, but the man was suddenly right behind me. You should stay, he said, smiling at the same wide-eyed smile. She gets upset if people leave too soon. My heart started pounding. I really got to get going, I said, trying to squeeze past him. He didn't stop me, just stood there, watching. I made it to the front door and opened it, and that's when I heard the woman's voice for the first time. It was high and soft and wrong. Come sit with me. I froze. The voice sounded close, like it came from right behind me, but I hadn't heard her get up. I turned slowly, but the hallway was empty. The man was gone. The kitchen light flickered, and I heard a dragging sound, like something being pulled across the floor. I didn't wait. I bolted, slammed the door behind me, jumped in my car, and sped down the driveway so fast I nearly took out the mailbox. I didn't stop driving until I got back to the shop. I didn't even care about the unpaid pizza. I just told my manager someone bailed and refused to deliver to that area again. Here's the thing though. The next day, I tried to look up the address, just to prove to myself that I hadn't imagined it. But when I pulled it up on the GPS, nothing. The road was gone, like it had never existed. I even drove back out there during the day. The gravel road? Not there. Just trees. No mailbox, no driveway, no house. I checked the order history on our system. It was blank, like it never went through. I don't know what I walked into that night, but sometimes when I'm driving late, I still feel that same heavy silence settle over me, like something's watching, waiting, hungry. The man in the booth. I used to work the night shift at a 24-hour diner just off the highway. It wasn't a glamorous job. Lots of coffee refills, cleaning up after the drunk truckers, and the occasional weirdo who'd sit for hours without ordering more than a single cup. But it paid the bills, and I liked the quiet. Something about the hum of the fluorescent lights and the smell of old coffee grounds, it felt safe. Until the night it didn't. This happened a few years ago, during the dead of winter. Snow was piling up outside, thick and silent, muffling everything. It was a slow night. My coworker called out sick, so I was working alone from midnight to 6 a.m. There were maybe 2 customers in the place. An old couple eating in silence, and a guy at the counter who'd been nursing a coffee for an hour. Around 2:30 a.m., the bell over the door jingled, and I looked up to see a man step inside. Tall, thin, pale skin, like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. He wore a dark, oversized coat and one of those old-fashioned hats, like a fedora, only flatter. He didn't say anything, just walked past the counter and slid into the last booth in the corner, booth 9. I grabbed a menu and walked over. "Good evening," I said. "Coffee to start?" He looked up at me, and something about his face made my skin crawl. His eyes were too wide, like he didn't blink enough. In his mouth, it looked like he was trying to smile, but didn't quite understand how. "Just water," he said, voice raspy, like he hadn't spoken in a while. I brought him a glass and left the menu on the table. He didn't touch either, just sat there, staring out the window at the snow. After about 20 minutes, I checked in again. "Ready to order?" He didn't respond at first. Then he looked at me and said, "I'm waiting for someone." I nodded and walked away, figuring maybe he was meeting someone late. But no one else came in, not for the rest of the night. Around 3:30, the couple left. The guy at the counter paid and disappeared into the storm. It was just me and the man in the booth. Still not a single sip from his water, still staring out the window. I tried to ignore him, cleaned some tables, swept the floor, checked the coffee machines, but every time I glanced over, he was sitting exactly the same way, still, silent. Finally, at around 4:15, I decided to ask him to leave. I walked over and cleared my throat. "Hey, sir, we don't usually let people loiter all night. You need to order something or head out." He looked at me real slow and smiled. A real smile this time, but it didn't help. It made everything worse. "She's almost here," he said. That's when I noticed something strange. His coat, it looked wet. Not like melted snow. It was darker, like it had soaked something heavier. And beneath the table, his shoes were leaving faint red marks on the linoleum. I stepped back. "Are you all right? Do you need help?" His eyes followed me, but he didn't answer. I called the manager on my cell and told him someone was acting strange. He told me to call the cops if I felt unsafe, but it wasn't quite that. I didn't feel unsafe. I felt watched. Like this man wasn't just sitting in that booth. He was studying me. At 4:37 a.m., the lights flickered. Not unusual in a storm, but they'd never gone out completely before. This time, they did, just for a second. Total blackness. Then everything came back on, and the booth was empty. I ran over, heart pounding. The water glass was still there, untouched, but the bench was wet. Not just wet, sticky. Dark streaks ran down the side and pooled beneath the table. I looked out the window expecting to see footprints or some sign of him walking away. Nothing. Just snow. Undisturbed. I locked the door after that, flipped the sign to closed, even though we were technically not allowed to. I stayed behind the counter until sunrise. When the morning manager came in, I tried to explain what happened. He thought I was messing with him or exaggerating. Said I probably dozed off and had a dream. But here's the thing. Later that day, when I was finally home, I couldn't stop thinking about what the man had said. She's almost here. It looped in my head like a song I couldn't shake. I ended up searching local news online, just out of curiosity, and I found something. A storm from 3 years prior. Same date, same night. A woman was killed in a hit and run right outside the diner. She'd been walking through the snow, headed to meet someone at a nearby coffee shop. The man responsible was never found. They said he'd pulled off for a second, then fled the scene, leaving her to die alone in the snow. Her name was Amy. She was 27. There was one witness, a waitress working the night shift at our diner. She told police the woman had come in briefly to wait for someone. She sat in booth 9. I don't know who the man in the coat was. I don't know how he got in or how he disappeared. But I know what I saw. And I believe him. She was almost there. The basement door. Working night security isn't glamorous, but I used to like the solitude. No coworkers, no micromanagement, just me, a flashlight, and whatever building I was watching over. This story happened when I was assigned to an old office complex on the edge of the city. It was built in the 60s, and it looked like it hadn't seen a full renovation since. I was told the building was being prepped for demolition in a few months. My job was to prevent squatters, vandals, or copper thieves from sneaking in. Easy enough. The building had 4 floors above ground and 1 below. The basement used to house file storage and utility systems, but everything had been shut down and cleared out years ago, according to my supervisor. The only light that worked down there was a single emergency bulb above the elevator door, casting just enough light to make the darkness worse. I usually avoided going down there unless I had to. The vibe was just wrong. Heavy air, weird echoes, that kind of thing. I chalked it up to poor ventilation and my imagination, but I still kept the door locked unless I was doing a sweep. One night around 3 a.m., I was sitting in the front lobby with my feet up, drinking coffee and watching a moth beat itself stupid against the window, when the motion sensor panel pinged. A light lit up for the basement hallway. At first I figured it was a rat or something. The place had its share. But then the elevator indicator lit up, showing that the car had moved from the basement up to the lobby. That caught my attention. The elevator had been decommissioned a month ago. The power to it had been cut. I checked it myself on my first shift after hearing banging sounds. The panel inside was dead, the emergency phone was gone, and the buttons didn't even light up. No way that thing should be moving. I grabbed my flashlight and stood near the elevator doors. Sure enough, I heard the familiar hum and clunk of the old mechanism coming to a stop. Then, the door slowly opened. Nothing. Just an empty car with flickering overhead lights. I stood there for a while, waiting to see if someone would step out, but no one did. The air coming from inside the car was ice cold, like it had been sitting open in a meat locker. I called my supervisor, but it went straight to voicemail. Figures. So I stepped inside, against my better judgment, and pushed the button for the basement. Nothing happened. The panel didn't respond at all. I tried the ground floor button. Dead, just like I remembered. As I stepped back out, the elevator doors closed behind me on their own. No big deal, I thought. Malfunction. Ghost stories in old buildings are always just that, stories. Except about an hour later, the motion sensor pinged again. Basement hallway. Now I was getting annoyed. I unlocked the stairwell and made my way down to the cold concrete steps of the basement. I kept my flashlight low, scanning side to side. The emergency light by the elevator glowed faintly at the end of the corridor. I took a few steps into the hallway when I noticed something new. The door to the old records room, which had always been locked and rusted shut, was cracked open. I stood there, staring at it, trying to decide what's worse. Something opened it from the inside, or someone opened it from the outside. I walked over slowly, heart thumping like a drum. I pushed the door open with my boot. It was pitch black inside. My flashlight beam swept across bare shelves, broken filing cabinets, and a shadow moved. I swear to God something moved in there. I froze. It hadn't been the kind of movement you'd expect from animals. It was upright, human-shaped, just far enough away that I couldn't see details. My light flickered for a second. Cheap batteries, always. I backed up slowly, not taking my eyes off the doorway. Then I heard a sound that made my stomach drop. Footsteps, wet ones, coming from inside the room. I turned and bolted back up the stairs, slammed the stairwell door behind me, and locked it. I didn't go back down there that night. I stayed in the lobby with the lights on, facing the elevator with a fire extinguisher in my lap. Not the most professional thing, but I didn't care. Next morning, I filed a report, told my supervisor everything. He barely glanced at it and said it was probably a homeless guy who found his way in. But here's the thing. The building had a full perimeter lock. No broken windows, no forced doors, nothing on camera. The elevator never moved again after that night. The motion sensor never went off again. But I swear, from then on, every time I worked that shift, I could feel something in the basement, watching. I lasted 2 more weeks before I asked for a transfer. I still think about the shadow in the records room, the way it stood there like it had been waiting, the way those footsteps didn't sound rushed or scared. They sounded patient, like it knew I'd come down eventually. I've worked other creepy buildings since, but nothing like that one. That place wasn't just abandoned. It felt forgotten, like it wanted someone to remember it. And whatever was down there, it remembered me.